Now, over time with police, right, we observe that there's all these changes in what they do and how they do it. And we can think of this as like sort of like a timeline, right? Um, boop, boop, boop. So the boops are necessary. So we think about this kind of timeline that's happening, right? We can think about this as what happens to police as technology is adopted, and really just like a police evolution, right? So we think about maybe at this point, right? We have radio come into play, not Radiohead. Although if you don't listen to Radiohead, you should check it out. And you also have cars coming in, right? So what does this allow police to do, right? If you think about radios and cars, right? It allows people to keep track of where police officers are at all times, right? It also expands police departments and their geography, right? They're able to communicate, they're able to direct officers where to go. You're put into the car and you're able to go to those places, right? So we have this change then where, we have like this speed kind of component, right? And we have this geography, right? So we're getting to our places quickly, right? That is the goal, right? But over time with this, right, it's pretty useful to think of it, right? But we also later on, right, as we gain more, we spend more speed and geography, right? We also see that, we also see the advent of the telephone. The interesting thing about the telephone, right, is that, like my dad can remember times when there would be like one phone for like the neighborhood, right? Or for like five houses. It'd be shared on a party line, maybe. So it wasn't like unique, so you'd have to be sharing it. But what the telephone ends up doing, right, is that this, and as the distribution of phone numbers goes in, right, this enables quick communication between the police and public. So what ends up happening now, right, is that if I pick up the phone and I call the police about a problem, then I expect them to show up, right? It's the kind of thing like, it's like if you got Bay expects you to pick up your phone, right? That's just kind of what they expect, right? You got to answer the phone, you got to like text them, you got to check in, all that good stuff, right? Otherwise, something seems suspicious, right? But if you're like me, you just tell Bay, I use do not disturb at work, don't hassle me, and no problems, right? That's not true. Actually, she does understand. It's really nice, actually. The other aspect that comes in, right, is that there's the advent of the 911 system, which used to not exist. And actually, there's still like actually quite a bit of expansion about 911 systems in the United States. It's for like the Bureau of Justice Assistance gives out like 911 like infrastructure improvement grants. Anyway, point being is that this is now like an emergency line where, again, like we're emphasizing that the police will come when called kind of thing, right? So let's take a little bit to understand like how each of these may have like shaped policing, right? So for this one, the radio, the car, right? The car makes police more mobile, agile, not hostile because this isn't, remember the Titans, right? But the car puts a barrier between the police and public to the point where we now think that that we have less contact with the police. Used to be more on foot. We used to be able to talk to them on the street, but now the car, because we're in the car hanging out, listening to music, whatever, right? We think we have a very different relationship, right? We don't think of it as the right kind of thing, right? So we have this barrier between us that leads to like a problem, right? So we have less contact. There's more social distance between us, and there's less people feeling, less closeness with the community. With these other segments, right, we'll pick a different, equally nauseous color. Maybe it's yellow one, right? With these, what ends up happening is a lot of different things, right? Is that we have this expectation For speed, right? So because we have this tendency to believe that, if I call you, you should come, right? You should like be there. You should be waiting for me. So we have this expectation for speed, right? And so we now measure performance of police based on speed, which is maybe like not the best thing to do, right? It doesn't mean you're good at your job if you're quick at it, right? It just might mean that you're quick at showing up, right? But we have this expectation that happens, right? The other part that ends up happening, right, is that the telephone, also because it's located inside homes, right, invites people, police into homes. And what this allows, or what this permits, right, is that there is this increased people handling like domestic issues, right? Because if I call you and you come to my place, right, I expect you to handle something, right? So that could be internal family disputes, that could be with neighborhoods. So a lot of domestic issues can be handled this way. And so what ends up happening too along this time, right, is that we also have this era where we become more professional, and we also have, less emphasis on weapons, right? So what ends up happening, if we think about this sort of timeline, right? So as time moves forward, what we end up finding, right, is that police ending up they're using less force, right? Even though it may not seem like it based off what we see in the media, right? They are absolutely using force, less violent force, less deadly. But our expectations of police have increased, right, significantly because of the way that we contact and control police.